Greetings, my name is Chuck Donnelly. We're working with the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments to demonstrate their Google Earth web browser. Hopefully you've already viewed the introductory and navigation tours so you have a sense of how the software works. I'm going to clear all of the map overlays, and then we're going to go and look at some of my favorite layers that are here. One is a tour of downtown, another is looking at trails, and the final one looks at floodplains. I plussed up area tours in Colorado Springs, and I'm going to click on the downtown buildings tour. Now, in SketchUp, which is a partner software with Google Earth, you can actually create 3D buildings. And the architects and others in town have gone in and created actual depictions of real buildings here in Colorado Springs. Now, periodically, I will pause this so that I can get a little bit higher resolution on these buildings. That's the Lowell Center, southeast of downtown. Now we're going to go look at the courthouse, and we'll just let it fly through the landscape and look at each one of these buildings. Notice that not all of them are done. Now I'm going to pause this and let it catch up so the Conover building can get full detail. Keep flying around here. Pretty remarkable level of detail if you want to have it, or they can be very simple buildings that simply depict the general location and general appearance of the building. There's the statue for Palmer at the intersection of Nevada and Platte. And then we're going to go and fly down Tejon Street. Hold on to your hats, this goes pretty fast. And finally we'll turn towards the west, looking at Pikes Peak down Colorado. Okay, let's close the tour. Let's minimize area tours. Go to transportation and plus up the infrastructure and transit layer, and let's turn on trails. Now I'm going to use my middle mouse as a button. I'm going to tip it up, and then I'm going to use the left mouse button to pan to America the Beautiful Park. You're familiar with that circular statue that's located here. Somebody needs to go and model that. But notice that there also is a trail that goes across a bridge over Monument Creek and continues on up towards Manitou. That's the old Midland right-of-way, railroad tracks that have been turned into a beautiful trail, kind of an interesting way to go through town. I would suggest that if you haven't been on all the trails in town, this is a way to identify where some of them are. We hope to be adding more trails as we get details on those, but kind of an interesting way to see Colorado Springs in a new way. So let's minimize those. Let's go to the environment, and under resource, let's turn on hydrology. Hydrology is water. It's where streams and creeks and lakes are located, and there's a light blue line here that represents Fountain Creek. I can click on that and it'll give me the details of that creek location. And as I zoom out, there are numerous other creeks that are in the region, and you can go in and identify what the names of those are. Hunter's Run, Sutherland Creek. So you can actually determine what the name of the creek is in a particular location. Now under hazard, I'm going to turn off hydrology. Under hazard, we actually have floodplains. Now these represent roughly the 100-year floodplain. They are approximate. You probably need to go and get the very detailed specific maps if you wanted to know exactly where the floodplain is. But you can see how there's a fairly large area around 8th Street and Highway 24. Now speaking of that, we have a TIP project. Let's see, by year, I think that this was originally proposed as a 2012 project, timing-wise, and I can turn that on and see it in detail and note that that area is at risk of some degree of flooding. And as we tip it down, we should recognize that this 100-year flood risk may increase due to the Waldo Canyon fire that occurred in 2012. That removed a lot of vegetation that would slow down the water, and now the flows in Fountain Creek may be increased. And perhaps more importantly, the sediment that's running off from those hillsides may start to fill up some of the creeks and cause problems in terms of the capacity of those streams to carry the flood waters. The intent here is to keep this at a planning level. This is not a design tool. This is a way for you to kind of get a flavor for where things are located. Maybe look at the floodplains in your neighborhood. Maybe look at the trails that are in those areas. Get a general idea of them, but don't think of this as being an absolute. You need to get more detail from experts and other sources of data. Hopefully you can have fun with this. There's lots of other layers out there. Perhaps you've got a particular interest. I encourage you to go and look at those.